are in Baird Country. So today we have a very exciting guest, Tori Baird, or Victoria. She goes by Tori, except like for really important stuff. Anyways, she is the owner and operator of Paddle Like a Girl, which is a business in which she teaches backcountry camping and canoeing skills, often right off of our property here in Magnetawan, Ontario. And it's geared toward women and empowering women. She also is the host of Tori Goes Outside, which is a really, I think, exciting Instagram page. Currently has a video going viral, although that's mostly our son Hudson.
Yeah, totally.
Has like over 40 million views. Hudson singing Johnny Johnny. She's also an experienced backcountry traveler, having winter camped and also ventured deep into the backcountry in the Yukon, into very remote areas by snowmobile, also on by snowshoe, on foot. She's backpacked across the Rockies from Jasper to Grand Cache, and she's paddled some of the most remote wilderness rivers in northern Canada, including the Mountain River in the Northwest Territories, the East Natashquan, and the Porcupine, and now is probably one of the bravest paddlers I know, because she goes out there as a family with our two young kids. So anyways, Tori, welcome to the show. Glad you could make it. I know you're busy with all kinds of stuff.
Yes, thank you so much for having me to your beautiful home.
You're welcome. I didn't really have much of a choice either way, but let's be honest.
You know my bio better than I do, so that's good.
I nailed that, huh?
Yeah, you did.
Good. So how are you doing today?
Good. I'm feeling a little stressed out.
Why is that?
Because trying to get a video finished for tomorrow. So you know how that goes.
Why don't you share what you are editing?
So I am editing our Stikine River series still. We're on, overall, I think it's episode 10, but of the actual river series, this is episode 4. I think there's going to be maybe 8 episodes.
I think you're gonna go with 8, eh?
I don't know yet. Today, This episode is 2 days. So usually it's like an episode per day, but I've condensed it into one video for 2 days.
As you know, I've done a lot of editing, and it can be all encompassing. Like you can't think about anything else. So many things on your mind at once. Yeah. Well, and especially on that trip, because we have the 2 kids, the dog, and roughly 4 cameras, and also a drone. Why don't you, I don't know, explain a little bit about the trip?
Oh, okay. So the trip itself. So, so in September, we drove from our home in Magnetawan, in Ontario, to across the country to northern BC. We took 11 days to drive there. We would camp out overnight in our camper trailer. It's kind of like a teardrop trailer, except it's a little bit more rugged. It's an off-grid, off-roading trailer. The kids and I would sleep in the trailer, and Jim got the luxuries of sleeping in the tent and give me the comfortable mattress in the trailer, which was very nice of you. And which actually I discovered on the very last night of our trip on the way back, that the tent was actually the better place to
from
sleep.
The road trip part.
The road trip. Yeah. I discovered I'd been ripped off.
Is it weird having to talk to me and to tell me this?
Yeah, I'm like,
I already
what
know.
am I telling you? You already weren't you there?
That's what I said. I know there's going to be some stuff like that, because there's some stuff that I already know about you that I want the listeners to know a little bit.
For sure.
Yeah. So we drove across the country, more or less, to Telegraph Creek on a crazy mountain road.
Yes.
Which has sheer cliffs, sometimes on either side of what's I consider to be a narrow gravel road through the mountains. Not something that you typically see in Canada. That's kind of where the real adventure started. That, and then on the Stikine, which, had some pushy currents, some rapids, cold water. We have our 2 little kids. Overall, as a mother out there, even with the experience that you had, how did that make you feel? What kind of emotions were kind of going through your head at times when you saw like potential danger?
It's interesting, because I really do love going out on these trips. I love camping. I love road trips. I really do love road trips. But it's honestly hard to just genuinely be enjoying it, because I'm constantly so worried about something. And maybe I don't know if I worry more than your average person or if this is just how any average mother would feel, but I'm just constantly thinking about the next step, what needs to be done, how the kids are feeling, when's the last time they ate, when's the last time their diaper was changed, where are we going to camp tonight, where are we pulling over for lunch, whatever. I'm just constantly thinking about the kids and their needs. And sure, of course, there are many, many times where I'm in the moment and enjoying it and like, taking in the beauty and just like the experience. But for the most part, I think I'm just a bag of stress.
So what you're saying is on these big, larger than life adventures, you're just feeling stress and anxiety the entire time.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Huh.
And now that I'm editing this series, actually, I'm looking back at it. And it's so nice to actually be editing it because I can look at the footage and be like, wow, that was so beautiful. Where was I? Because
Well, just so you know, I'm having a blast out there.
Good. I can tell. Watching the videos, watching the clips, I'm like, so there's a lot of shots of, from the GoPro of me in the bow and you in the stern, so you can see us both. And I'm just looking at my face in this footage and thinking, and I know how I'm feeling. I can put myself right in the moment and like I can feel the stress and anxiety weighing on my chest. But then I look at you in the back of the canoe and like you're just so happy. It's pouring rain, it's windy, it's cold. We're like we're paddling these tricky currents and you're happy.
Oh, take me back.
Whereas I don't want it to sound bad or wrong because I do love it. But it is really, really stressful and scary.
And okay, let's talk about that. Let's get more specific on this. You're talking about not every single trip you do with the kids. You're talking about the Stickeen River and the Telegraph Creek Road where we were driving beside cliffs, and then the Stickeen River where, we had tricky currents in some areas, but more or less horrific weather for just day after day after day after day, and everything was cold and soaked. That's where you were feeling, not just like every time.
No.
So I guess why? I mean, do you know what type 2 fun is? Are you familiar with type 2 fun?
Of course, yes.
So type 2 fun, just so people that don't know, is like fun that's fun afterwards. So at the time, you're like not really having fun because you're cold, you're wet, you're getting bug bitten. But then some time goes by after this type 2 fun event happens and you laugh about it, you talk about it, and you create these memories, and next thing you know, you're planning another one of these adventures. I had a friend explain it to me years ago before I ever heard the term type 2 fun. He said, it's fun afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah. So would you say that, the harder the trip is, the longer of a period of time it takes to be fun? And so now that you're editing this stuff, is this becoming more fun now than it was at the time?
Yeah, I don't know if it necessarily takes longer for it to be fun after the fact, if it's a longer or harder trip. Like I felt like it was fun like almost immediately afterwards. I think by the time we got to Shoot Lake, I was feeling, which we got to Shoot Lake, I think 3 days after we were done the Stickeen.
Right.
And I was like excited to share the story with people because I knew it was intense and crazy and wild and cool, and so I felt like I had the bragging rights. I could talk about it now, and I felt okay about it now that I know we're all okay. And also looking back, even especially watching the footage, looking back, I'm like, we were never ever in danger. Like there was no like risk of hypothermia. Like sure, we were cold and maybe uncomfortable and wet, but even at the worst of times, we were never really in like a life-threatening danger by any means.
And we had the option to be able to call a jet boat. Now, if something happens quickly and that won't come fast enough, but we could have gotten a jet boat to pick us up even at the very beginning of the trip, realistically, probably within 8 hours at the most, like within a day.
Yes.
So we were on a river that at the base of it, there was a town in Alaska at the mouth of the river. And we had a couple jet boat captains on our InReach satellite texting devices that if we got into trouble, we could get a pickup.
Yeah. Which was why we picked this river to begin with, because it's always important to have an escape route plan or like
Mm-hmm.
evacuation plan, and that was
Mm-hmm.
our plan, was jet boat. And so
Mm-hmm.
um yeah,
Yeah.
I should clarify about the not enjoying it thing. Okay. I
I didn't even know that you.
I
I didn't even know that you weren't even having fun.
okay, so you know what I
That
love?
was news to me. I thought you were having fun out there,
Okay, so
and you're
this
riddled with anxiety.
okay, so this is what I should explain to you, because I do really enjoy I obviously enjoy going out there, because otherwise why would I do it? I'm not just doing it for the street cred. Maybe I am. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But um, I like being in these remote areas, uh, you know, beautiful areas, challenging to get to areas. I love camping. I like staying in the tent. I like being around the campfire. I like just being out there in nature with my family. Um, and like being there in the moment, because there's nothing else. There's no distractions aside from just like where you are and what you're currently doing. Like it's all basic. Your basic needs is all you need to worry about: food, shelter, water. Like that's it. Warmth. And so
Yeah.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe what stresses me out is getting from point A to B, which is the canoe tripping portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because putting my kids into a small boat in cold water essentially, and in like a fairly swift current, that's scary to me. So
Let's just whose idea was doing the sticking again?
it was mine.
Yeah. So it just what was your idea? So
Yeah, no,
right.
I have never denied that it was my idea from the beginning.
For completely unrelated reason. I forgot. So I was just
You just
asking
wanted
whose
to
idea
you just
that
wanted
was.
to
Yeah.
a quick reminder.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so the anxiety of making sure every night when we get to camp, like the anxiety of like getting to camp. I know once we're at camp, it's good.
Right.
Like sure, I'm afraid of bears a little bit, but like we have like the odds are so slim of a bear ever, being aggressive, enough to
Mm-hmm.
cause us any harm. But yeah, it's really the dangers of dumping, the kids being not, drowning or freezing to death. Well,
So-
you know what? So tripping with the kids
Mhm.
makes the thought of, or just like physically doing my own canoe trips by myself, or me and you, just seem like, what was I ever afraid of doing a trip without kids?
It's true because yeah, you're so the way I look at it, it's like, and what's the difference once we started doing these adventures with our kids? What do you think changed?
So my concerns about myself are not even relevant anymore. Like I used to be like, oh, I'm going to be cold when I get to camp, or I'm going to like my socks are wet. None of that matters, because I know, okay, my socks are wet, my feet are wet. Who cares? Like I'm fine. Like, so I'm a little uncomfortable. But if I know my kids' socks are wet, specifically Wesley, because Huddy will tell me that he's upset or uncomfortable. Wesley is like goes from 0 to 100. Like he can't be like, oh, my socks are wet, and then I can change him. It's like he's happy, fine. And then he's crying because he doesn't know how else to communicate to us that his socks are wet or whatever, right? So I think the major difference is just constantly being concerned about the kids, more specifically Wesley, like I said, because I want to make sure they're comfortable and that they're safe. Again, Hudson will tell me now, he's at the point where he can say, I'm hungry, I want my diaper changed, whatever. Wesley can't. So I'm very on edge about needing to check Wesley, need to check his toes, need to check his hands, need to check his diaper, and like just check his core temperature, because I'm constantly worried about him. And I just realize now that all of my concerns that I had before I was tripping with kids seem so minuscule and like irrelevant.
I honestly feel the same way. And of course, Wesley has a rare syndrome called FOXG1 syndrome, and he's 5 years old now. And we've been taking Wesley on these adventures ever since he was younger. And I do see that they're good for him and his development. But in part because of Wesley's challenges and just the realities of doing these trips with kids, Like I even remember the first one we went on when we brought when we brought Wesley when he was young, and we were planning on putting in to a lake, paddling down this long bay and doing 2 portages to get into this like backcountry trout lake,
Yeah.
thinking that that was just going to be no problem.
Yeah.
We didn't even make it down the bay. We made it to like the first island,
Yeah.
and the kid was
It was 4
crying.
kilometers.
And yeah, we made it 4 kilometers. The kid was crying, pulled over. It was early, like fairly soon after ice out. Nobody was around. And I remember thinking, oh man, we're not making it, and being kind of like bummed out. And oh, like, you know, I had this vision of what the trip would look like in my mind. And now it's like a fraction of that. And then I remember having the best time ever.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I remember just, okay, pulling back on my expectations and having to roll with the punches with the kids, but also just making some amazing memories too.
Yeah.
And I think that some of the memories we're kind of making, it's even hard to really realize them right away until some time goes by and realize like these amazing things that we've done with our kids. I mean, sometimes you get bad weather, like on the Stikine, like we got hammered with horrific weather, and there's nothing you can do about that except stay prepared and have the abilities that we have. But even then, sometimes things don't go as planned, and that's why you need a safety net. Do you want to tell the story about what happened on day 2 of our adventure? On the Stikine.
Well, I guess technically
and
day
also
1.
the Stikine too. Like I think what people don't realize is how pretty. Sure, there's a safety net with a jet boat, but it's remote. Like we're talking about northern BC and southeast Alaska. Like there's no road access anywhere for, you know, hundreds and hundreds of miles along this remote mountain river.
Yes.
But yeah, tell the story about what happened on
it
the.
certainly is the wilderness.
Yeah.
You know. And when we say there's jet boat access, like it took 6, probably 7 hours to get from Wrangell back to our vehicle by jet boat. So like, think about if we were halfway along the river in the middle, from either end, it would take at least 3 to 4 hours for someone to come pick us up. It's not like, you know, we can call 911 and like the ambulance.
There is no
pulling
911
up.
there. And then also, what if that jet boat captain, it's not like he's sitting there idling.
Right.
He might be
He's
drunk
busy.
at the bar. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or something. Like,
Well,
you know.
even I don't want to give away too much, but even at the end of our trip, we did end up calling a jet boat shuttle just to pick us up a little bit earlier than we expected.
Well, we didn't. It was too choppy.
Which is fine.
paddle on the
Safety,
ocean.
we chose safety first over, you know, just having the bragging rights of completing the river, I suppose. But anyways, we did call the jet boat, and he said, "Oh, I'll be there in 4 hours," and we were like 20 kilometers from Wrangell, and
because
so
he's got other stuff to do.
He's on a job already. So luckily, we weren't in, you know, danger. We were
You're
pulled
still,
over. It was fine.
You got to be self-sufficient.
But yes,
to a large
yeah,
extent.
we could get ourselves warm and we could wait it out. It was no problem. But like, you know,
Don't let it make a false sense of security, I think is kind of what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
good. Yeah.
Like people think that they can just. Anyways, I just remember hearing a story about when we were doing the mountain river and people got, you know, it's a float plane access river, so people get dropped off, paying thousands of dollars to be guided down this trip, and they get like 2 days in and they decide they don't want to do it anymore, and so they call a helicopter evacuation.
Which probably cost them $10,000.
Yeah, of course they're paying for it, but it's like there's better use for these resources. Like you can't just, oh, I don't feel like doing this anymore. Like the whole point is sticking it out, toughing it out, and like building some, you know, resilience and character, you know.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, so you were asking me to tell about day 1, technically, of our trip.
I really like having this interview with you, honey. I feel like
I know
get
it's
to have a good
because-
chat with you. Like we never get too much time to just chat, you know.
I know, but also it's because you actually have to listen to me.
Do I not listen to you?
I'm just kidding.
Okay, good. I'm sure I could work on listening. Yeah. So
It's okay.
tell. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
okay,
how
with day
did
one.
that? So tell what happened. But I want to hear because we
Okay,
haven't
so I'll
even
start-
fully talked about this. So I want to hear how that.
So
made
this
you
is
feel. Like,
so
what
I was already
going through your
nervous. So
mind?
like we drove the Telegraph Creek Road in, which was already enough of an adventure for me. I could have probably turned around and gone home after that and been like, that was a great adventure, because the road was extremely terrifying, even though people drive in and out of there every day. You know, it was terrifying. Just sheer cliffs. There's like parts where only one vehicle can fit.
20%
right
gradient.
20%. Like you see those hills, it's like 8%, and you're kind of like, oh, this is pretty steep. 20%.
Yeah, yeah.
So, anyways, terrifying. Plus a trailer. We're towing a
Mhm.
trailer.
Mhm.
Anyways, the truck handled it no problem. But so anyways, we get to Telegraph Creek after driving this terrifying road, like white knuckle the whole time, and we had met a couple there who I guess follow our adventures and invited us by, and we chatted with them, and they explained that where they are, they're in the rain shadow, so it was pretty dry at that time. It was really
Mhm.
beautiful, sunny, warm, and they're like, oh, but the weather's changing. It's calling for rain for the next 10 days or something like that. And I'm thinking, okay, well, like, what are the odds that it actually rains for
Like
10
in
days?
the whole region.
Yeah.
Remember, we're traveling, miles
Yeah.
every miles
So
and
I'm
miles
like,
every day.
I didn't think, I was like, all right, we might have a few days of rain, which we expected because we are going to the rainforest. So then, anyways, so we get on the river. Day one was a beautiful, beautiful day. We're paddling, running a lot of rapids, like class 1 rapids that they were all fun and nice. And anyways, we actually came across that same couple halfway down the river because they had gotten into their boat and went out to have lunch along the river. And this is just something that they get to do often, just boat the Stikine
living
and
the
just
dream.
anyways, pretty cool. So anyways, we chat with them for a little bit, and they're like, oh, we decided to come out and have a nice lunch on the river because this is probably going to be the last one of the season.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, like, why? Oh, well, because there's a system coming in, and he kind of is explaining how the wind is going to blow in this new system, and it's going to be rainy, and basically the rain shadow that they're in switches. So now they're no longer in the rain shadow, and it's just going to be really rainy, I guess, for them. So I'm thinking, well, we're paddling away from them. Maybe we'll be like on the other side now of the rain shadow.
That would have been nice.
I mean,
Lord
that didn't
knows
happen.
that wasn't true.
So anyways, so it's kind of this ominous, like, what's foreshadow of what's to come. He's like, oh, this wind is going to bring in this new system. And anyway, so get to camp, set up camp. And because we knew it was going to rain the next day, Jim set up a tarp. I set up the tent kind of like, I want to say half-assedly because I'm like, whatever. I staked it out a little bit. After we eat dinner, we're kind of just hanging out under the tarp. It's dark out, and all of a sudden just the wind picks up. Howling wind, like, rips one of the pegs out of the tarp, and I look over and the tent is almost flying away. If it would have, if I hadn't whipped all our stuff inside of it. So anyways, Jim and I immediately run over and start, pegging it out better. You're collecting boulders and sticks and guying it all out. Hudson scream crying because, well, the tarp is flapping and the wind is blowing. It's terrifying for a 2-year-old. He doesn't know what's happening, and we're kind of panicking.
That was terrifying. Well,
yeah.
It was just like, I knew we were going to be okay, but I was so dialed in on like that tent not blowing away, and I was watching the poles. The tent looked like it was flattening,
Collapsing. Yeah.
Like if we had a bad tent and if we had a high end tent, it just would have snapped the poles
Or
and
shredded.
just crushed down, and then then shredded on the broken ends of the poles.
Yeah. So that was our first thought, was like, we'll stop the tent from blowing away or shredding or collapsing or whatever. I'm trying to console Hudson, who was crying, and then Wesley didn't seem to care in the moment. So
Wesley's a seasoned vet.
Yeah, he's just like, this is nothing. But luckily we were camped in a spot where there was like no trees around us, so I wasn't worried about like trees falling down on us. Anyways, get the tent all guyed out. I get in the tent with the kids, calm them down. They go to sleep. I think we got out of the tent, ate the fish that you were in the middle of cooking when the wind blew up.
Yeah.
Anyways, so the wind died right after we were finished guying out the tent, of course. And we go to bed. The next morning we wake up. You get out of the tent first, which is usual because I stay in the tent and I get everything packed up and get the kids ready, and you go get the food barrels and start breakfast. You get out of the tent, and I think it took you a minute to realize that the canoe was no longer there.
What did I say? I don't remember.
I was just in the tent and I hear you go, oh no. And I could just picture you with like your hands on your head. And I'm like, what? Like, the canoe is gone. I'm like, no.
Oh God, I'm getting PTSD remembering this.
Yeah. So I Anyways, I'm like, no. So I like was unzip the tent because I mean, not that I didn't believe you, but I go and I look, and sure enough, the canoe was gone. And so we were camped on kind of the outflow of this little creek where it met the Stikine. And so the direction that the wind was blowing, it would have blown the canoe directly into that little creek
Yeah.
and taken it down river.
And
If we
then
weren't on that
despite,
creek, it probably
yeah,
would have just blown into the trees,
right.
into the forest or
Yeah.
whatever a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, it just blew it right into, that's what we're assuming happened. Blew it into the creek and
Had
it
to
was
have.
gone.
Yeah. And I did have the painter of the canoe tied around a boulder.
Something like that.
Yeah, like a rock, but I guess the rock wasn't deep enough sunken into the sand, and it just the rope just pulled
Yeah.
under the boulder. Because if you think about it, gale force wind with it ripping the underneath.
Well, and the canoe just acts like a sail.
Yeah.
It's a gigantic sail. And the canoe, even though it's 18 feet, it's only like 75, 80 pounds
Yeah.
maybe.
So how did you feel? Like what was the emotion that went through your mind when you heard me say the canoe's gone?
I initially, part of me was like, as weird as this might sound, a part of me was a little relieved because I'm like, oh yes, we don't have to do this forever. We can go home.
Why? Because
We have
after
an
the windstorm,
excuse.
you were just like terrified and didn't want to continue.
Well, not only after the windstorm, but after all the rapids we had run the day before, I was like, I'm terrified. This is way more intense than I was expecting on the Stikine. I knew it was swift current, but like, I was just like, oh no, what have we signed ourselves up for? So there was a part of me that was feeling a little bit
Yeah.
sense of relief. Like, there's our excuse. Now we can go home. Because I was like, well, we're like 10 kilometers from, what's the town at the end of the road? Glenora.
Glenora, yeah.
I was like,
which is
just
no,
call
it's
our
a tiny town with
yeah,
a few people, but we
still,
had a
our friends
contact
could
there.
have just come down in
Yeah.
their boat and got us. We were literally
Mhm.
like 2 kilometers from where we had bumped into them the day
Mhm.
before.
Mhm.
So we would have just in reach to them
Mhm.
and hung out there. We had 10 days worth of food and a tent and all of our stuff. I was like, oh, I'll camp here for a little bit longer. It's
Mhm.
fine.
Right. Yeah.
But
you're
so
probably-
a part of me was relieved. And then,
Of
but-
course, to remember the hardest rapids of the whole trip were upriver.
Yeah.
And they weren't even, they were like class ones, if that. Like
Yeah.
we avoided everything.
Yeah.
But again,
With
you know,
the
as people
kids.
that bomb class 3s and dump sometimes, woo, that was fun, right?
Yeah.
Just with the kids, the excitement and the fear was like amped way up, and we just avoided everything, barely even hit one wave because we were
Yes.
too scared.
I know, like anything on that river, you and I would have just not even scouted if it was just the two of
Right.
us. We
And
would've
you
just-
could start from Glenora as opposed to Telegraph Creek and
Yeah.
just skip all of that.
Yeah.
But we decided to start from the top.
Yeah, we wanted a little bit
Mhm.
more excitement, apparently. Just paddling the
Mhm.
Stikine wasn't enough. I didn't
Mhm.
even know that was an option until after.
Mhm.
Anyways, so a part of me was relieved, but I was really disappointed because I was like,
Mhm.
we literally just drove 11 days across the entire country to paddle this river. We
Mhm.
weren't, of course, the road trip is a great part of it and was all fun and part of the adventure, but the sole purpose of doing that drive and that road trip was to paddle this river. So
Mhm.
I was like, if we just drove all that way and have to drive back,
Mhm.
and we didn't even make it, one day out here, like that's really, really, really crappy. So yeah, I was disappointed for sure.
Mhm.
But I was also like, we'll get it back. It's kind of, I just felt
Mhm.
like, it's just really an inconvenience that now we have to spend the day looking for it or whatever, and maybe put us a
Looking-
day behind.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really hard for Jim to have to go get it because I get to hang out with the kids at camp. But
Mhm.
I was like, oh, we'll get it back. Either, we'll call, because I was thinking if we do call somebody to like get us out of there, we're obviously going to go look for the canoe with
Mhm.
them because we're not just going to leave the canoe. You're obviously going to go and look for it a little bit at least, because maybe it's just a couple kilometers downriver. So if we
Mhm.
were to call our friends, they were to come get us, I'm sure we would have gone to look for the canoe anyways, even
Right.
if we were planning on calling them to get us out of there.
Yeah.
Like we wouldn't have just wanted to leave this canoe floating around in northern BC without
Yeah.
trying to look for it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
a good
so that was
point.
my thought. I was like, oh, we'll find it. Either we'll find it and then get out of here, or we'll find it and keep going. I don't know.
Mhm.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, which is about right. I was just kind of embarrassed because I'm supposed to know so much about canoeing. I've been doing remote wilderness trips for 18 years. And so what do? Every single night you tie your canoe up as if it's going to be a once in a lifetime windstorm, because that's what it was. Two locals, one guy said once in 50 years windstorm, the other people said once in a lifetime. There's trees snapped in half all
Yeah.
over the place, did damage to property, you name it. So, I mean, maybe the answer is yes. You tie your canoe up
Yeah.
every day like it's a once in a lifetime windstorm, especially when you're in an area that remote with your kids. But whether your kids are not,
Well, I'm
so
sure
lessons learned,
I'm
that's
sure a
what
lot
I'd
of
say.
people, avid canoeists, would probably say, yeah,
Yeah.
pull it way up, tie it up
Mhm.
every time.
But then at the same time, is it like saying like, oh, geez, I'm an idiot because I didn't weld reinforcement steel in my car roof and a tornado knocked a tree down on it and smashed my car? Is that their fault too? You know what I mean? Like sometimes
that's a
there's these
reach,
acts
but
of
yes.
nature that are
Yeah,
really
I know
extreme.
what you mean. I know what you mean. Of course, but I think just in the canoeing world, it is, best practice to just haul your canoe up and tie it off to
Which
something.
we did, but just not well enough.
Which you and I usually do in
But
general.
we didn't tie it up
especially
well
on a river.
enough.
Yeah.
And we didn't
Anyways.
haul it up. And I guess we hauled it up far enough, but it blew into a creek
Yeah.
and then washed into
It
the river.
it was just like a lot of it was a perfect storm.
Yeah,
Literally,
a
like
perfect storm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, maybe we shouldn't give much more away about this because
Yeah.
we'll let people jump over to our YouTube series that you're working on so hard editing, and they can see what the rest of the story is about the canoe. But I'd like to talk to you a little bit about just like I want to talk to you about Paddle Like a Girl.
Okay.
But first, I want to ask you a little bit more about your experience growing up. Were you involved in the outdoors? Were you excited about going the outdoors as a kid, or is that sort of something that happened later in life? And I guess, could you kind of go back and tell me a time, let's say when you were a kid or a teenager, and you thought about camping or thought about the outdoors or thought about adventures and travel? Is that ever something that kind of spurred your interest?
Yeah. So actually, I didn't really grow up camping or outdoorsy at all, really. I was always like into sports, and like I would love going bike riding and rollerblading and all of that stuff, which,
Right.
whatever. But some of my fondest memories as a child is actually the when my mom took us to Algonquin Park. I think it was just drive up. Yeah, it was definitely
Yeah.
just drive up. But regardless, it's one of my it's a memory that really sticks out in my mind because I remember seeing a moose.
Cool.
We did go canoeing, and I remember seeing a moose, and the moose was peeing and I remember that very vividly because it was just like really it was very aggressive, like the pee sound. It was so loud
Cool.
and so long. I was like, how much piss does this moose have?
I have a pissed animal story too as a child.
Really?
Mine was at African Lion Safari.
Okay.
Which is like a zoo that you
Yes.
drive around in. And there was a rhino peeing, and the rhino was peeing so much that it was creating like a
stream.
canyon
Right.
rushing away from its,
Yeah.
from the base of its pecker.
Yeah.
And ever since then, whenever my brother was taking a huge piss, I'd say, "What are you, a rhino?" Because we were both there, and it's been like a run-on joke for the last 35 years.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
So
but I hadn't heard this piss story. That's a very continue. Please.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I made this up in my mind because, but that's just a vivid memory for me, is like paddling and coming around a corner, and there just being this moose there and it peeing. I don't know. Anyways, that's a memory that I have. Another memory from that trip is a chipmunk. I guess the animals were pretty tame at this point, but a chipmunk, I got him to climb all the way up my arm and onto my head because I was feeding it like peanuts or whatever. And so that was another memory. But yeah, so I mean, obviously those are positive memories for me from my childhood. And so, and I do remember always being very jealous of kids who had cottages.
Yeah.
I remember just being so jealous that like every time summer would roll around, they're gone all summer because they would just go to their family cottage. And I would get invited to, like, one of my friends had a really nice cottage And so I would get to go up there for like a week or something like that. But just always remember being so jealous. And also camp, like going to summer camp was
Yeah.
always something that I was so jealous that people got to go to, because
Mm-hmm.
for grade 8 we had did go to a summer camp for like a couple nights as our grade 8 like graduation
Mm-hmm.
thing. So I loved it. It was so much fun because there's all the outdoor activities, all the sports like rock climbing and like canoeing and whatever else we did. But I just remember being always so jealous of the kids who got to go
You
do
know,
that stuff.
I like summer camp. I went to a sports camp. I wish I did one camp where we did day trips canoeing just in Muskoka. But I honestly, there was too many rules because my family, I was lucky enough that my grandfather and dad built a cottage in the
Hmm.
60s. And I kind of got to do all these things. It was a water access cottage too, or camp or cabin, wherever you happen to be. They call them different things. But I remember going to camp and being like getting in trouble, and there was just like too many rules. And I felt like I knew how to drive all these boats. Like, why did I have to wait in line to like let a camp counselor drive them? And then like the camp counselors were like mean Gen Xers and cynical, you know what I mean? With like rock band shirts and shit, you know? And
Yeah,
anyways, whatever. I still thought it was awesome, but I think it would be cool to send our kids to like one of those canoe tripping camps where they
I think
really
so.
get into the backcountry and
Yeah,
toboggan and stuff.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think um, I never would have expected myself to get to a point where I'm doing the trips that I'm doing now. And
Hmm.
um, but yeah, I think it was always just a part of what I enjoyed doing.
Hmm.
And now that I'm into it, even I still have imposter syndrome, even though I've done all these epic trips. I still am
Hmm.
like, so if I meet someone else who's into the outdoors or into canoeing or whatever, and we chat about like, oh, I used to do this, or I was once an instructor, I immediately like, oh, they're way better than me. And they're way more hardcore. They've done way more trips. Like this is just the imposter syndrome
I don't know.
where
I
I
say
just
you are.
I don't take the credit where I should, because I'm assuming, well, just because I didn't grow up doing it, I'm not as
Mhm.
good or experienced or knowledgeable as the people who had a cottage and were always outside playing in the dirt and exploring nature,
First of
whatever,
all, a lot of people with cottages don't do
I
what
know.
it was just like fun in the sun. My family was we first of all, where our camp was, our cottage was in an area with a ton of public land and backcountry lakes.
Hmm.
And so we were like bushwhacking on compass bearings and fishing and visiting these remote lakes. We'd always try to visit them. And then we started camping on them as kids, like without our parents from a young age, portaging. People don't typically do that kind of
No,
stuff.
I know.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's where I kind of learned my side of the things. But
Yeah.
so it was, and by the way, I just look at your paddle stroke. It's very good. It's very beautiful, very strong, looks perfect. And I think that I guess you started getting into this mainly once you started dating me.
Hmm.
I always wanted a girl that was down for this stuff because I knew I would be doing it so much that I would never see my significant other if they weren't.
Hmm.
So just the fact that you were excited about it excited me. And when we started doing it together, I started thinking, I think Tori likes this stuff more than I do. Like, remember that trip we did across Algonquin Park, and I left the fishing rod on like the upper Petawawa, like 3 portages, and I had to do a 4K bushwhack to find our last fishing rod.
Yeah.
And then I fell and like damaged the
Yeah. Almost
crap
broke
out
your
of my
leg. Yeah.
leg on the way there. And it was almost dark. I remember getting back after that being like, this is just a shit show. I'm injured. I'm bleeding. I'm swarmed by bugs, exhausted. And you're just like having so much fun. I'm like, I really think she likes this more than me. And you learn something so fast, right? There's people that can be doing stuff all their life, but the accumulated hours that you learn, plus you started dating me, and then married me, thank God. And I already had a ton of experience that I could just give you,
Hmm.
right? So just because you didn't do it since when you're a kid doesn't mean that you can't learn all the things you need to learn quicker. Especially now, you can learn things way faster nowadays because of the internet too than you could back in the 80s, in the pre-internet days. It could
Hmm.
take you 18 years to learn something you can learn in 5 years nowadays. So I think you just kind of became immersed in it. you know?
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
That's my experience from
Yeah.
going
But
out
it's
there with you.
also because, admittedly, this isn't really the healthiest reason, but I'm also extremely competitive. And so I am like, I want to be
Yeah,
the best
right.
at whatever it is that, like, mainly with like
hmm
sport.
hmm
I want to be really good at it, and I'm competitive. And like, I'm not like well, sometimes I'm a sore loser, but when I see somebody that I think is like really cool or really good at something, like I want to be like, I'm like, I want to be as good as them, you know,
hmm
like they're doing this. I can do that too, you know?
hmm
So I think with canoeing, you know, I want to do it properly and
hmm
well. I don't want to just be, you know, lily dipping out there, you know? So,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
with you in the stern, like you're always screaming at me. So I just don't have a choice.
Paddle hard. Well, that's because we're running like intense rapids.
Exactly.
Yeah, like the East Natashquan and Natashquan. Remember some of those rapids we ran out
I
there?
do. I
Good
do.
Lord. Yeah. I think we were the first people to ever even get video footage of that epic
Waterfall.
waterfall in the East Natashquan.
Yeah.
Man, that was mind blowing.
Yeah.
So cool. I want to go back. I don't remember that being a particularly nice day. It was like hammering rain and bugs.
That was also a really not nice weather trip, as well
No.
as the porcupine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The
What do you?
nice weather trip was the Rockies and the
Oh,
mountain river.
oh, yes. Yeah. The mountain
It was
was almost
abnormally
too
hot.
nice.
It was 30 degrees at 11 p.m. in the
Right.
on the mountain river. Remember that?
Yeah.
And we were camped on a gravel bar with zero shade.
Yeah. Yeah. That was crazy. And we were at pretty high elevation. Well, no, we were close to the Mackenzie, but still, we were fairly high elevation and in the Northwest Territories, like well north of
Yeah.
60 for it
It
to
was
be that
so
hot.
weird. But anyways,
Yeah.
so beautiful.
So what happened when oh man, I could talk about this with you all day, but I want to talk about like your paddle like a girl,
Okay.
because that was something that you really, I remember we used to live, you know, down south, and you were doing photography for CrossFit, for this CrossFit gym, and you were kind of doing a barter with them where they'd let you work out for free. And I remember when we moved up north, I felt really bad, kind of like I was taking you away from that, like you had this cool thing going. And just of your own free will, despite the fact that we'd just gone through like what I felt was a traumatizing experience and really bad news, getting our son Wesley's diagnosis and being told that there's a good chance he'll never be able to learn how to walk and never learn how to talk. And that not long after that and moving here, you kind of found a whole other thing that really took off in an exciting way. What was it? What was it that that sort of inspired you to do that, to start Paddle Like a Girl?
So, so the main thing I think
Mhm.
is that I've always been extremely independent, and I like to feel capable and strong, and like I can do it. I don't need no man, like that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So going from being that person and then
Mhm.
like having a kid, first of all, becoming a mom just changes you so much because, well, now like you have this small baby who's 100% dependent on you, but you're also, your life is revolving around them and their needs, right? So I felt like kind of a loss of like identity, right? Like
Right.
who am I? I'm a mom now. Like that's just what I am, and then everything else comes second. Okay, so then we were going through the diagnosis with Wesley. So now
Yeah.
not only was like, you know, kind of my world had just had all these major life changes. You know, we got married and
Mhm.
immediately got pregnant, and then moved far away from my friends and family. Like we moved 2.5 hours north of where I grew up and where everyone I know is.
Mhm.
So now we're somewhere new. And I'm a new mom because we moved up here a month before I gave birth to Wesley.
Yeah.
So, which is isolating in itself when you're a new mom, let alone physically being isolated from everybody and everything.
Mhm.
And then we start realizing he's delayed, and then we start going through the testing. And so it was just like a year from hell. Like it
Mhm.
was like, I can't. Anyway, so what happened? So we're going through testing, and the whole year, January to basically October, was full of like pretty intense testing with Wesley,
Mhm.
physio, OT, different doctor's appointments, specialists, going down to sick kids like 3.5 hour drive from here
Mhm.
just for appointments to get no information. And then a friend of mine invited me on a solo canoe trip.
Mm-hmm.
So by solo means each were going to be soloing our own canoes. Obviously, we would kind of have each other there as companions, but we were totally in charge of our own outfit, and we didn't have to kind of worry about each other as much. We were just
Mm-hmm.
there to, morale boosters, basically.
Where did you go again?
So we did a 5-day trip through Algonquin. So we
Yeah.
started at I think Smoke Lake, and then finished in Rock
Mm-hmm.
Lake. So there was like a 3-kilometer portage in there.
Wow.
There was a bear scare in there. Like it was a pretty intense trip for my.
Mm-hmm.
It was my first time going without you.
Mm-hmm.
And like just soloing a canoe. Like, I mean, I've soloed a canoe before, obviously, but my first time going on an overnight canoe trip without you, who was like the person who I relied on to do a lot of the tasks around camp. So, anyway, so in the midst, or like kind of near the end of our testing or diagnosis journey, I guess I'll say, I went on this trip with Kobe. We still hadn't received a diagnosis. This was before we received his diagnosis, but after he had started having seizures.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on that trip with her, and it was just like everything I needed. Like, it reminded me that, I can still go on trips like this. I can still do things like this physically. And I'm not just a mom. Like, I do have this identity as like a canoeist, an outdoors person.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of changed my perspective. And also just in general, it was what I needed, like emotionally. I just needed a break from
Mm-hmm.
being constantly stressed out about
Mm-hmm.
what this diagnosis is, because like, think about it, you're waiting every day, like on tenterhooks, is that the word, tenterhooks, to get a phone call that's going to change your life. Like,
Yeah.
oh, Wesley might never walk again. We still didn't know. So you just,
Mm-hmm.
every day you just feel sick to your stomach.
Crazy time.
Anytime
Crazy
the
period.
phone would ring, I just felt
Mhm.
like puking, and
Yeah.
so going on this trip, I just like got to totally check out, like,
Mhm.
I'm in the moment. I need to get us from point A to B. Need to, again, food, shelter, water, warmth, whatever. That's all I needed to worry about. I didn't need to think about a diagnosis or a phone call coming in or whatever.
Mhm.
So
And you dealt with some kind of scary occurrences on that trip too.
yeah, we
Yeah.
did.
How did that dealing with those occurrences help you sort
Yes,
of
for sure.
gain confidence, or how did they make you feel or react moving for
Well,
kind
it's
of in
just
the
funny because when you're out there and
Mhm.
you're in the wilderness, and you're totally reliant on just the gear that you have with you,
Mhm.
and you are responsible for getting yourself out of there, or like to safety or whatever it is. You kind of realize that, well, when I'm back at home
Mhm.
with the luxuries and comforts of like our house and the roof over our head and the electricity and running water and all of those things, I'm like, nothing is really that hard anymore.
Right.
Like, if I want to drink water while I'm out there, well, I need to make sure it's treated, or I'm boiling it or whatever, so that I'm not going to get dirty and get sick. Well, if it's pouring rain, I need to make sure I can set up a shelter and
Mhm.
I can get warm and I can be safe. If it's windy, I need to make sure I can get my, canoe to where I need to go for safety, whatever. It's just, you're very like worrying about your own safety and comforts. Whereas when you're at home, it's like, well, I've got this big comfortable bed and my blankets and the lights are on and I can get a fire going in the wood stove. Like, it's just, everything just seems so much more simple and
Yeah.
easy. And I'm like, what was I ever worried about being at home? Like, nothing's really that hard because I can
Mhm.
always just go inside my house. And
Mhm.
so when I would think about the challenges with Wesley, I was kind of feeling like, well, we'll be okay. We are blessed to have, this home and all the resources that we've discovered we have right here,
Mhm.
because we have so many resources, probably more than we would get in the city because the wait lists are probably so long. But it just kind of puts everything into perspective that, well, maybe if I can handle this out here, then how hard could it possibly be at home in the comforts of my own home?
Wow, yeah, that's pretty powerful. So it gave you sort of a different perspective on everything, I guess, happening in your life, all the challenges happening in your
Yeah.
life at that time.
Yeah.
And then how did that make you want to start Paddle Like a Girl?
Yeah. So, yeah, I didn't really know what I wanted to do at first, but when I went on that trip, I was still on maternity leave. And so I
Mm-hmm.
had a few months before I had to figure out, well, what am I going to do for work once my mat leave ends? And so after going on that trip, and actually before that trip, I had right after Wesley had his first seizures, I had the opportunity to go out west and be part of this Novacraft commercial
Yeah.
for Export Development Canada. So I got to go out there, and they had actually brought me in because Novacraft knew me, and they recommended me as like someone who knows what they're doing out there, because they had hired other people to obviously to also be in the canoes with us. So they hired myself and another girl that Novacraft knew. And so when I went out there, I was paddling stern, which
Mm-hmm.
I didn't normally do. So I really had to get up on my sterning skills quick,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, I'm going to be on, like, this is a serious shoot, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
look like I know what the hell I'm doing out
Yeah.
there. So I like
Yeah.
immediately was like, I got to really amp up my skill. And so that amped up my sterning skills. And then after that, I went on that solo trip. So anyways, I'm trying to figure out what to do. And because I was so like kind of empowered after this trip with Kobe, I was like, I want to share this with other women specifically, because I'm thinking, everybody has got their own stuff that they're going through, their own stresses, whatever, so, and it's all relative. So
Mm-hmm.
just, after being a mom and then becoming this, mother to a child with special needs, I was like, how can I share this empowering experience with other women? So I started thinking, well, maybe I'll guide trips. But then I'm like, well, I don't have all the gear I need to guide trips. I don't have all the certs I need, blah, blah, blah. So I wasn't really prepared or willing to put in the work to guide trips. And I wasn't sure if that was what I wanted to do. So I kind of scaled it back and decided, instead of guiding, backcountry trips, why don't I just introduce women to what they could do in a canoe? So even though they're just camping on our property, there's a house here, it doesn't seem super appealing to maybe somebody like you who likes to obviously get away from civilization.
It is beautiful. It's right on the river.
Beautiful.
There's nice
Exactly.
swimming, like all
So
kinds of cool stuff.
So that was my thought process, was like,
Mhm.
first of all, I'm bringing people somewhere that they've never been before, because they've
Mhm.
never been to our property before. It is so beautiful,
Mhm.
which is the first comment people usually make when they pull up here. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful here. And it's not really about getting out into the backcountry and being in like in a wild space. It's more about getting outside for the
Mhm.
weekend, being among a group of women who also have similar intentions or enjoy the same thing. They're all here for the same reasons. They want to be outside, learn a new skill or hone their skills, whatever it is.
Mhm.
So you get to meet other women who you may eventually go tripping with, which a lot
Mhm.
of my past participants have made friends with other participants, and they've gone on trips since then.
Mhm.
You get food made for you all weekend, which is pretty
Mhm.
cool. And it's really just something for you to do, like it's an opportunity to have something for yourself. Like
Mhm.
that's kind of really the only way I can put it, because people have asked me, oh, can I bring my daughter? And maybe one day I'll consider doing like a mother-daughter one. But my initial goal behind it was not so much just about come and learn a skill, which that's the main premise. It's more about women, and specifically mothers, need to have something for themselves. And
Mhm.
so it's different than going away for the weekend to a spa, or going out for dinner with your girlfriends. This is like a full weekend, being kind of pretty much immersed in nature, because we are getting out, we are paddling, you're camping, you're sleeping in a tent.
Mhm.
Some people who have come to my workshops have never slept in a tent before. And so people come for many different reasons. There's many
Mhm.
different reasons to come to my workshops, and I couldn't have imagined it being better than it is. Like
Mhm.
it has evolved over the
Mhm.
last 4 years, because been
Mhm.
doing it for 4 years now. So it has evolved, but just seeing women's faces as they are, it's finally clicking how to get that canoe to go straight in the water, or them lifting the canoe up over their head, after they told me, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it. And just seeing their smiles at the end of the weekend, they're just like they're all friends with each other, they're hugging and they're happy, they feel confident, they're empowered. It's more than just learning how to canoe. It's about reminding women that they are strong, that they are capable, and just giving them the opportunity to get outside and also hopefully now take the skills that they've learned and now do their own backcountry trips, or sign up for that guided trip that they want to go on, or just anything. Like, they'll, similar to me being out on that trip and realizing, wow, I was able to do this trip. What else can I do? And so that's kind of my goal. Like, people are like scared to get into a canoe because it looks like this tippy thing that's going to dump, and maybe they don't want to go for a swim, you know? So if I just help them get into the canoe and realize, okay, it's not just going to dump when I look at it, or, you know, I know how to keep it going straight. I know how to navigate my way, you know, through Algonquin. I can read a map now. I know what to pack. All of these things that maybe seem overwhelming or intimidating when you know nothing about it, or aren't given the opportunity to learn about it. It's doable now. It's attainable. And so I just, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
A lot of fun?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how does it make you feel when you learn how to lift that canoe up over your head? Because from what I can see, it's mostly the kind of thing that, you know, the man does. If a guy goes with his wife or his girlfriend or whatever, usually the man's portaging the canoe, and probably in a lot of situations, maybe that makes sense. Maybe, you know, men are stronger on average. But I think that women, yeah, right. I think that women also don't realize how strong they are.
Yes.
And this comes from anybody, because I've gone out on some hardcore trips with my friends, very, you know, long trips, and they've apologized to the rest of the group after a few days in, because they realized that they weren't carrying enough.
Yeah.
They saw everyone carrying, and they thought, well, this is as much as I could possibly carry. Flash forward a few days, they're carrying more and more. And I've had a friend come to me and say, I had no idea I was this strong.
Right. Yeah.
And that is something that he then carried with him for the rest of his life.
Exactly.
As just somebody who thinks they're strong. Is that something that you see people clicking with out there? And how do you think that makes them feel? How does that make you feel to when you realize that you're stronger than you think, but also when you see other people realizing it?
Yeah, it's incredible. It's like, this is why I'm doing it. Like, it goes back to me just always feeling like I want to do it. Like, I don't need your help. I can do it myself. So, like, kind of sharing that with other people, with other women specifically who don't think that they can do it. Like, I've had so many women say, oh, is it okay if I opt out of lifting the canoe because it's intimidating? And so I give them a chance. I'm like, can we just try? We'll be right there with you, and like, we'll take it off your shoulders if you need to. I just want you to try just to see what it feels like. And they do it. And then next thing you know, they're like, oh, I'll carry the canoe. Like, I'll bring it down here for you if you want. Like, they're so excited to. And then later on, a month later, I get a picture of them carrying a canoe because they went to Algonquin and they're doing the portage. And so, sure, like, on average, you know, between you and I, you're bigger and stronger than I am. So it only makes sense because you're going to exert less energy for you to carry the canoe. Sure. But, like, it's not just about what makes the most sense all the time. What if I'm on a trip with you and you get injured and I don't know how to carry the canoe? Well, now we're both screwed, right? So it's like, it's only for safety as well. Like, if not only for safety, for the women for you to know how to carry the canoe if you need to, or all the skills to do with canoeing, right? Like, that's a lot of my participants are like, well, I usually am tripping with my partner and he's always carrying the canoe. He's always sterning. He's always doing this. So, well, just because you're learning this doesn't mean now you're going to take over the role of portaging the canoe on every trip you go on. But in the off chance that A, you want to carry it, you can, and B, you have to carry it because they can't. They've hurt their leg or they've whatever. It's good for safety. But I guess maybe I didn't really answer your question. Your question was how do they feel and how does it make me feel? They just feel, I can tell that they're like, holy shit. Can I swear? Holy shit, I did that. Like they're just like, and they thank me. Thank you for, empowering me. I don't want to say making me carry the canoe, but they're like, thank you for getting me to try that because I otherwise, and when else are they going to do it?
Right.
Like, are they sure? Maybe their husband might be like, you carry the canoe, but I've been there and I've had my husband telling me how to do things and you're very good
super responsive
at what you do, but but in my defense, I've seen you explain things just like this, just do it like this, just like this. There's no
Step by step.
I've learned over the past 4 years how to explain in many different ways because everybody learns differently. Okay, try this. All right, let's try it this way. Put your hand here, place this here, and so it's a learned thing for me to teach. But also, there's something different about learning from somebody else than your significant other for some reason.
I heard you mention that you based this entire business off of women who didn't want to listen to their husbands.
I mean, I don't know if that's okay to say, but
it's a joke.
I
but
know.
It's
true. It's like there's something about you telling me how to do something versus literally probably anybody else.
A cat, even.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hudson, whatever.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
And I also think the mansplaining thing a little bit. I don't know if
I've literally
witnessed.
I've literally witnessed somebody try to teach their significant other how to do like the flipping the canoe up onto their shoulders, and I don't want to just step in when I have not been asked to step in. So I'm watching and I'm just thinking about like they're not changing the way they're explaining it at any point. So if it's not clicking when you say this, you need to change the way you're explaining it. And so
I think too, like I remember hearing that Michael Jordan was shooting a commercial for McDonald's and he was supposed to miss a basket and it took him like 33 tries before he missed because it's so dialed in. It's so ingrained.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was shooting a video on how to lift a canoe, I realized I didn't even know what I was doing and I couldn't even explain it just because it had become so second nature to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So somebody that's actually taken the time to think through it and also somebody that might have actually learned it a little later in life that still remembers the steps on how to learn it. It's why like the Wayne Gretzky's aren't always the best coaches. People that things kind of came so naturally to. It's oftentimes people that are not the best right out of the hop that had to put more time into learning things that become the best coaches, which is really interesting. I also feel like that through explaining that you in part explain what it means to paddle like a girl. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Just the meaning behind the name, like why I decided.
Yeah, like when you're explaining to me that you realize that you're strong and you realize that wow, I can do this. That through that is sort of what paddle like a girl means, what it means to paddle like a girl. And I don't know if you could explain what the meaning behind that is, but it seems like it's pretty empowering.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of stole it from a commercial that I had seen a while back, and it was I think like maybe a Tampax commercial or something, but it was basically them asking a group of kids of different age groups. So they started off with young kids, I don't know, 5 or 6 or something, and they would ask them, okay, what does it mean to throw like a girl? And they'd ask boys and girls, and they would all throw as well as they could.
I've seen that commercial. It means to throw really, really hard.
Yeah, it means to throw. Okay, what does it mean to run like a girl? And they would run really, really hard. And then they'd ask like the next age group. And then by the time they got to the teenagers, they would ask them, what does it mean to throw like a girl? And they would all mimic and throw like really weak, like dainty. What does it mean to run like a girl? And they would all do this silly, like useless run, right? So society has obviously ingrained that, to do something like a girl means to do it not well and very weak because women are weak and incapable, I guess, is kind of what society has just naturally taught us. I don't know why. But anyways, so I loved that commercial. It really sat with me because I'm like, yeah, when did this become an insult to do something like a girl? Like, why is that? Why are we saying, you do that like a girl? Like, why would that
Do you
be
ever feel
insulting
that
to somebody?
that as a woman that you have to do things like a girl
Yes.
in order to not
Yeah.
seem too masculine or something like that?
Yeah, so that's where I got Paddle Like a Girl from, because my idea was like I wanted it to be for women, and so I'm like, Paddle Like a Girl just came to mind, and so
And so
the
what does
idea
paddle like it
is
mean? What
the
does it mean?
idea is Paddle Like a Girl means you paddle efficiently and powerfully and as capable as anybody else would paddle, basically, right? So paddle like a girl, like to paddle like a girl means you are a strong, powerful paddler.
It
And
means
then
you've taken back that power that,
yeah,
that was
yeah.
what
So
was
it was
robbed.
initially like kind of
Yeah.
a bit of a joke, and like there are people who still to this day will see the name
Mm-hmm.
Paddle Like a Girl and it's like ha 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 paddle like a girl, and I'm just kind of like, whatever, you can laugh at it if you want. Like it is obviously a play off of the what
Yeah.
is to be an insult.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, anyways. So, and then, just last summer, I would go paddling with Mary, our cousin in law, and I bring the blue steel with me. I had tied it to the roof. I take it off the roof. I'm portaging it to the water.
The blue steel is a canoe.
The blue steel,
Yeah.
sorry, it's our 15-foot prospector.
Yeah.
But which is the one I solo all the time. So I brought that with us. I take it off the roof, put it in the water. We have our paddles. We have all the stuff we need. We have our fishing gear. Get into the canoe, and we're literally about to paddle away. And this man is there with his kids, and he's just being nice and polite. But he comes over and he's like, "Are you two going to be okay?"
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, he's asking. He's concerned for our safety
Mm-hmm.
because we're women, we couldn't possibly know what we're doing, getting
Mm-hmm.
into. And I'm thinking, what about this situation tells you that we are not going to be okay? Like,
Right.
I know he's just trying to be nice, and I was like, yeah, we're good, thank you. But it bothered me the rest of the day because I'm like, would he have asked two men
100% no.
Would if two men came out here
Mhm.
and did exactly what I had done?
Where were you, by the way?
We were near Ottawa,
Okay.
Caledon.
So you weren't like in some whitewater river or something, and
We were on
you
a
were
lake.
outfitted
We were on a
completely
beach.
properly for where you
We had our
were.
life jackets, our
Yeah.
paddles. I had carried the canoe on my shoulders, taken it up, put it in the water. Like there was, it's not like I was fumbling with stuff and like tripping over myself and dropping the canoe. Like I'm like thinking, what about this situation? What could I have done differently?
Mhm.
And again, sure, he's just he's trying to be polite. That's what he's doing. He's being polite. But in my mind, I'm thinking, would you have asked two men this question? Would you have asked a man and a woman this question? But you're just asking because we are two women getting into a canoe. You are assuming that this is our first time ever getting into a canoe, or that we're usually with a man who knows what they're doing. That's what I took from that. And like, sure, maybe I'm jumping to conclusions,
Yeah,
but this is a
potentially,
reason.
but
Sure,
let's
but
be
this
honest.
is the right. This is the reason why one of the many reasons why I started Paddle Like a Girl, because why is it so weird to see women doing this?
Well, and to me, every time I hear that story about what it means to paddle like a girl, and people thinking that they can't do something, or that they wouldn't look enough like a woman, or that doing something like a girl means that they do it weakly and like a priss. And to me, just listening to that story, I always find to be so sad, like just emotional, because that confidence, and that's one of the things I think that's so good about sports, and your athletic background that led you into canoeing and this wilderness travel, is just really resonates with me. I remember asking one of your friends, wow, like, how did Tori gravitate to this so much? And they said, I'm not surprised. Hey, Tammy, could you take that siren thing away from Wesley, please? Thank you. Yeah.
No, that's okay.
We're leaving that in. It's okay. Not your, yeah.
Not your fault.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, so it's just like she's like, your friend's like, I'm not surprised that Tori got into this at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess she knew that maybe you didn't have this outdoor adventure background, but that you just had this competitive side and this athletic side
Mm-hmm.
to you. And it's not like you're from the wilderness. You're from, I guess, what was a small town. So that, I guess, that confidence in sports really led you here.
Yeah.
And I just look at that and think about that within myself and just feel like if that was robbed from me
Mm-hmm.
by society or by sexism or whatever, how looking at that and empathizing with that, it's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's so devastating.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things when I look at what you're doing with Paddle Like a Girl and kind of giving that power back to people.
Yeah.
I just think it's just so freaking awe-inspiring and amazing.
Thank you.
You know, I just so
also,
proud
you had
of
mentioned
you.
that I would thank you.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that I was doing CrossFit too before we moved up here, and that was
Yeah.
a huge piece of why I kind of built the confidence in being strong.
Mhm.
Because my whole life I have been stronger, just as a woman, because I'm bigger, and that's just naturally.
Mhm.
I guess I'm just naturally strong for my size. I don't know. Anyways, but I was always embarrassed. Like anytime I'd be like with a man, and if he couldn't lift something I would be afraid to offer to help or whatever, because I'm like, I don't want to emasculate anybody.
Never an issue around me.
Exactly. So anyways, so now I'm like, I'm not embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm confident in my strength, and I like being capable and knowing that I'm capable, because yeah, that's just, I guess, who I am. But I'm also now able to share that with women, that it's okay to be strong, and it's
Right.
okay to feel confident and capable, because we are, So,
Yeah. And how do you feel about being one of the only like non-whiteys in the space?
on Whitey's, is that?
Well, kind of. I mean, you
Yeah,
go
no,
to
of
you go to
course.
Tori Goes Outside Instagram page and you talk about you want to diversify the
Mhm.
outdoors, and that's kind of a big thing. You see all these manufacturers where all their advertising are just white males, and sure, there's a lot of white males that do this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but I think there's also a lot more people than you think from different backgrounds that kind of weren't represented. And yeah, so you're seeing kind of a lot of these manufacturers putting, more a diverse lineup of people, and a lot of the time authentic people on
Which is really cool.
into their ads, and then you're seeing them on Instagram. I felt, and I think that's helping get other people involved
Yeah.
in it. I don't know if you could speak to that a little bit. Do you feel that you have to, not being your average whitey, do you feel like that you have to prove yourself more? Or I don't know how you
I
could.
certainly do feel like I have to prove myself more, because just like I told you, that man asking if we were okay, if we're gonna be okay because we're women. Of course, there's a part of me just being not white, feeling like, is he asking us this because we're women or because I'm black? Like he's
I
probably
mean, maybe
making,
he just was into the brown sugar too, which is a possibility.
I'm just assuming that, I mean, everywhere I go, especially living in like a small town, everywhere I go, I'm very aware of my skin color, of course, right? Like
Yeah.
just naturally, that's just what I'm constantly thinking about, unfortunately. But
You are very brave.
but anyway, so like, especially when you go into these very white male dominated spaces like canoeing, it is intimidating, and I feel a lot of pressure to be very good at what I'm doing. I
Right.
don't want to make any mistakes. I don't want to slip. I don't want to trip. I don't want to do the wrong paddle stroke. I don't want to, like, I need to be perfect at it, or, all of those stereotypes. I'm going to prove all of those stereotypes to be right. So I need to be good. And so that's probably just the additional pressure that I put on myself.
I just feel enough like that myself,
Right.
or anybody does.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that a lot of that extra pressure on you might make some people say,
Yeah.
maybe I don't want to do this.
So I'm just hoping that me doing what I'm doing and just having a little bit of an online presence can inspire other people to get out there and feel like, well, I'm not the only one doing this as a Black woman, I can do this too. And the more Black women there are, Black men or women or whatever, who are out doing it, the less odd it will become. Not that it is odd, but it won't be this thing that people need to ask questions about, or it's just going to be, well, there's another canoeist over there, so I'm just hoping that I can, I'm by no means any type of activist or anything like that. I'm just hoping that my presence will help.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm like, even this year I'm looking to kind of expand Paddle Like a Girl, and I've found this other wicked paddler, Alicia, who wants to be a part of it, and so she's going to take on running some workshops. And I'm like, perfect. She's mixed, she's a wicked paddler, and knows her stuff. Like, she's worked for like outdoor gear shops and stuff like this, so she really knows her stuff when it comes to gear, and she guides and all this stuff. So I just think, like, just bringing more faces to the forefront that might not look like your typical paddler will just help diversify the sport and make make people like me feel more comfortable when you're getting out onto the water, because that's what it's all about, right?
Where and that's she worked for the BIPOC Outdoor Gear Library?
No, she's I worked with her for Kawartha Land. We did collaborative thing for Kawartha Land Trust, and she was actually working with, oh geez, now I'm forgetting the name of the store. This is embarrassing.
It doesn't matter.
Anyways, why can't I remember the name of the store?
A store in Bob Cage
in like Peterborough.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's in the Kawarthas. And so she came out to a workshop to shadow Sherry and I last year, and I was already, based on our event that I did with her, I was already impressed by her paddling skills and just her knowledge. So I was just immediately was like, she can be somebody who's going to be running a workshop for sure. So this year, I'm just finally going to do it. I'm just going to stop being so afraid of offering more locations and dates and all that stuff.
So there's going to be more Paddle Like a Girl this year, more opportunities.
Yeah,
okay.
in different locations. Yeah.
Where can people check this out? Like, where, if somebody's interested in taking one of your workshops, either a day workshop or multi-day workshop with camping and prepared meals, where can they go sign up?
paddlelikeagirl.com. You can find all the workshop dates on there, and you can sign up on there. There's also like a little bit of merch. You can buy a t-shirt or a decal.
I say decal.
I say decal too. And yeah, so it's, I'm excited for this year.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's super exciting. So we have a lot of stuff planned for this year. In fact, we've been discussing going to the Yukon as a family to do a canoe trip there in the fall. Yeah. How are you feeling about that?
That I'm excited about.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the going back to the beginning of our conversation, the stikine and the incessant rain, and I think we had a bear hanging outside of camp and the canoe blowing away. Totally excited to go to the Yukon regardless. So even though that you said you're 100% of the time loaded with anxiety.
Every time you go to the Yukon, it's beautiful, perfect weather.
It really is.
So we better get perfect weather. But we're going, end of August?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the same time we did the stikine mid-September. So hopefully we get there during a time where it's actually going to be nice weather and not, but yeah, I'm excited. The Yukon is beautiful. I've never been to the Yukon in the summer. We've been there in the winter, and it was minus 40 the entire time. It was
minus
cold.
38. Let's be honest here, honey.
Yes, sorry, minus 38.
Yeah.
It was cold.
Remember
cold.
when we were sitting in the hot springs? So we did this crazy snowmobile trip, and it was like minus 30, but we're in these beautifully warm hot springs looking up at the mountains and crazy northern lights.
Oh, so yeah. So I'm excited, and longer days. It'll be, I think it's going to be good. And then also it's not going to be as intense of a river as Stikine.
No,
it'll be a little bit more of a
not
leisure
that the
paddle.
Stikine's intense, but there are some churning currents. And
there's a lot of tricky currents that I don't know if I needed to be so freaked out about, but it's good to be cautious. But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to it. And we're not road tripping it out there; we're flying out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we going to take the dog?
I think we should.
Yeah,
if we can. Yeah,
I think we should too. Yeah, awesome. So, what is it like being married to a professional adventurer?
Well, I mean, I signed up for this. So even though you have to leave for extended periods of time, it is what I knew I signed up for when I was marrying you. So I do have the luxury of being self-employed and working from home too. So our schedules can be very flexible, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And also it's just so cool and fun. Everything's like, it's an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Our job is to plan expeditions and canoe trips and like all the logistics that go with it and film them,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's a lot of work. I don't think people really realize how much work it is before, during, and after.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, what else would I rather be doing? As stressed out as I am because we're so unorganized and everything's
It can
chaotic,
be a bit of a shit show.
I'm like, what I did the 9 to 5. I
Mm-hmm.
worked at an insurance company. I
Mm-hmm.
hated it very
Mm-hmm.
much, and I would very much not like to have to go back and do anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's like, this is what I signed up for. It's fun, it's exciting, it's
Mm-hmm.
something new, and like you're very passionate and you're always coming up with new projects that I have to become an expert at very
Like
quickly overnight, like
podcast.
podcast production, for example.
Your producer.
So,
Yeah.
I'm just thrown in like a video editor. Like I have a lot of titles that I can add to my
Mhm.
resume if I ever do need to go and work for somebody else. But I'm learning a lot, and I feel, yeah, I don't know. It's not what I would have, if a 14-year-old me would never have expected
Mm-hmm.
me to be doing this.
So
Let's
do you
put it
find
that
it's hard? You 14-year-old, you wouldn't have expected. What did you expect to do at 14?
I mean, I have no idea.
No. So fair enough. What isn't it hard when I have to leave because some of these trips I do in the Yukon, they might be 14-day canoe trips, but then there's a couple days on either end, and I'm gone for 21 days in the middle of the summer. You have your paddle like a girl workshops. You're trying to juggle the kids. I'm not there to help with that. Do you find it hard when I'm gone for that
Yeah.
long?
Yeah, I find it hard, but I also it's also a little bit easier. I'm sorry to tell you.
What?
Like obviously I miss you, and it's challenging with the kids, but like
Mhm.
it's one less person to clean up after.
Right. Well, that's a good point. And also, we are together,
All the
working
time.
together all the time.
Like literally
which is
our
actually a miracle.
computers are like
Yeah.
beside each other. So like we're together
Mhm.
24/7, and then you go away for like 3 weeks. And then
Mhm.
we're back together for 24/7. And then,
Right.
so like it's not like you're away for like 6 months out of the year. When you're here, we're together
Right.
all day. It's not like I'm going away 8 hours a day. We're together all day.
Yeah.
So it's nice. It's like absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? Like that's a very true statement.
Mhm.
And as much as it's nice to not have to clean up after a fourth human in the house,
Mhm.
I miss you,
I
and
do
it's
clean
nice.
the kitchen,
And then I am
stuff.
excited for you to come back, and we
Mhm.
and we can chat and catch up, and you tell me
Yeah.
about your trip and I tell you about what happened when you were away, and like I think it's a healthy thing. And like again, this is what I signed up for. I wasn't about to be like, you can't go on adventures anymore now that we have kids, because this is what I signed up for. I knew you were an adventurer. What, are you going to go get a job at the slaughterhouse?
Right. And I also am building something, and you can see it's working. I'm able to monetize doing these adventures and share it with people and inspire people.
Exactly.
And that's makes in turn me happy and helps me become a better parent and all that kind of stuff
Absolutely.
too. So you grew up in Newmarket, Ontario, which, it's, I guess now a suburb of Toronto, but at one time was its own town before development and urban sprawl and all that kind of stuff. But, you're not living sort of in the bush where a lot of people would consider where we live now. A lot of people would consider where we live now to be like remote.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And, we don't live in Magnetawan Village. We live outside of Magnetawan Village, and most people around here are just cottagers. They come up on the weekends in the summer, and we are on a river. So, what was it like? Was it like a bit of a shock to you? I wouldn't say it was a bit of a shock, but was it a change? How did you feel kind of going from somewhere where you could order a pizza to moving to somewhere where you get 8 feet of snow in the winter and there's not really any services close by, and there's other things like what were you not used to?
I feel like I handled the change pretty well. Like I didn't really feel like there was anything I missed very much. Like before we moved up here, we were going out for dinner a lot.
We were.
Like
Well, I just
probably,
went alone, so I was starving, and I had a bunch of money,
and we
and I
lived
wanted to
really
spend it on food.
we lived really close to State and Maine.
Yeah.
So I was kind of glad that we couldn't just go out for dinner and
Right.
and spend a lot of money all the time, because we started saving money and also just started cooking more. And so that was good. And then also just like being more intentional with our trips to town, like intentional
Yeah.
with the grocery shopping, instead of like, oh, I can run to the store really quickly. It's like, well, it's 40 minutes to like a grocery store. So
Mhm.
I have to be more intentional. Okay, when do we really need to go grocery shopping? Can we make do with what we have until, next Wednesday, when I have to pick up Wesley's medicine, and just kind of do it all at
Mhm.
once, instead of just like running in willy-nilly for whatever reason to get something stupid that I don't really need.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think it's kind of fun. And then we also have these things that we need to do around the house, like, you know, to get ready for winter, and like it's feels more involved. We have more space. We can do like gardens, um and yeah, I don't know. I think it's fun. I also like driving, so I don't mind the extra drive to get to the store, or to go visit my sister or family or whatever. It's
Mhm.
kind of, it's an excuse to go for a drive or whatever. But I feel like I handled it pretty well. The most challenging part is not being able to just go out with friends on a
Mhm.
whim, and also like for a short period of time. Like I can't just be like, I'm going out for dinner with my girlfriends to catch up. It's very much, okay, when am I going down to the city next?
Mhm.
Where am I going to stay overnight? Because I'm not driving down there and back in one day.
Right.
I'm missing a lot of like little things that my friends invite me to, like birthdays and like certain things like that I feel like I should be attending, but
Mhm.
I do feel I can't, like we're just so busy. And then on top of that, it's far. So I feel
Yeah.
a lot of guilt in that aspect.
So no issues with like 4 feet of snow, mice in the house, power outages.
Everyone has mice in their house, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
And power outages, that's fun.
Mhm.
That is all like adds to the
Awesome.
excitement. We gotta get the generators ready.
I
you know?
love just the
Speaking of 4 feet of snow, I have to
yeah.
leave
Oh,
soon.
really? Okay. I love just cutting our own wood, just feeling more self-sufficient, kind of having a bit of a homestead too.
Yeah.
Living closer to nature, looking out the window and seeing deer on your lawn, being able to fish and swim right in your own river.
That's something I was gonna mention actually.
Yeah.
Was that the difference is that now when people come up, they're coming for a night, an overnight. So it is like a destination for people, which is kind of fun. Like it's like they can think of this as their cottage.
And now we have friends that live up here too.
And now we've made friends that are local, which is really nice. And so
Mhm.
yeah, like, and then also your friend group becomes like smaller as they do as when you get older. Like I think that's just natural. But the people that you're inviting up are people that you want to spend that kind of time with, because
Mhm.
you don't want to invite just like an acquaintance that you can tolerate over a dinner. You
Mhm.
don't want them like necessarily coming to your house for a full weekend.
Right.
So it's intentional. Okay, who's coming
Yeah.
up this weekend? Who do I really want to
Yeah.
spend that quality time? Who am I comfortable
Yeah.
waking up to being in my kitchen
Yeah.
first thing in the morning? While I'm in my pajamas and my hair is a mess. So.
I honestly, that's a really good point. I never even thought about that, but it's true. Okay. Well, I mean, I wanted to ask you. So, do we have time for one more question, honey? I know
Okay.
you got to go pick up Hudson. I
Okay.
love you. So, your Instagram page, Tori Goes Outside, is kind of awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And
Thank you.
you're very welcome. And you actually have a video
I
right
didn't mean
now
to say
that's
like, yeah, I know.
oh yeah.
I meant it's like, oh, thank you.
Oh yeah, it's whatever. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I get it. You're very, very humble. Very humble. That's fine. I noticed that you have a video on there right now of Hudson that's got like 45 million views or more. It's just going completely bonkers. And I love what you've been doing is you've been taking really organic footage from our existing trips
Mhm.
and you've been editing it into specific Instagram format,
Mhm.
but almost kind of making a bit of a meme out of it.
Yeah.
Could you describe it like that?
So I see things that we caught on camera that we didn't intentionally catch. So
Yeah.
I'll just like take little clips. Like for example, just yesterday I came across you doing an interview and me in the background like whisper swearing at the tent because I had kicked a peg out again for like the fourth time, and I was just already on edge and annoyed. And so I just see myself just like swearing in the background of you like telling an interview. So I just little things like that I just find funny and maybe relatable.
Yeah.
So I feel like if people can relate to that kind of stuff, then I make a little reel out of it. So I guess you could call it a little meme.
Amazing. Well, okay. I guess maybe it's time to call this quits. I'll just ask you one more question at the end of the day. What would you say to anybody that wants to try giving the outdoors a shot, and maybe they're a woman that might be a little bit nervous? Can you give any words of encouragement or inspiration to somebody that might want to give it a shot?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say if you're new to it and you want to get into it, just start small. You can read books on it or watch YouTube videos, but just start small. Start with what you would be comfortable with, and just gradually add on to it or make it a little bit more challenging, whatever you need to do. And just because if you didn't grow up doing it, that's okay. There's still so much time. I know people who didn't get into it until they were like 65 and they were retired. Like there's always time, and you gradually learn what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. You don't have to go canoeing if you're afraid of the water or whatever. You can go backpacking, hike in somewhere, and work your way up. Don't sign yourself up for too much to start, because then you might have a bad experience and you might never want to try it again.
True enough.
So find a nice, happy balance where you're enjoying it, but it has that right amount of challenges that you can kind of overcome and grow and build some character with it as well.
Amazing. Tori, thanks for venturing into Baird Country.
Thank you.
It seems like you live here all the time, I imagine.
I know.